Test.
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 Restart the response process. But I'm gonna do better. I'm gonna do better. I will do better. And maybe hey, with the new thing, we will move back to salary. I don't think that would be a real truth. Okay. Yeah, mine was pretty crayon. No, no, I had them. Coffee cream hummus. It's actually good.
Really?
Yeah. Coffee.
He'll try it.
Bam. Coffee cream hummus. Dude, it's good. The first bite's a little weird, but no. Bam. It's not books a million.
Hi, everyone, and thanks so much for joining us today. The webinar will begin in the next 2 minutes. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. My name is Marianne Hensley, and I'm the Director of Digital Media Content for FreightWaves, and we're happy to be presenting today's webinar in partnership with Trucker Tools. Today, we're going to be exploring specifically how new technologies can enable brokers to drive greater productivity, grow their businesses, and set themselves up for success in the future. We'll be hearing insights from Prasad Gollapalli, founder and CEO of Trucker Tools, as well as personal experiences from Zack Maddox, who's the Managing Director for Freight Solutions at FedEx Transportation Management, and Michelle Potter, who is the Senior Director of Strategic Development for England Logistics. Before we get started, I'd just like to cover a couple of housekeeping items. First, if you have any issues during the webinar, please feel free to reach out to our team via the chat function on your Zoom control panel. Also, if you have questions that you would like to ask our presenters, please enter those through the live Q&A box in your control panel, and we'll answer as many of those as possible during the live audience Q&A following the speaker presentations. And now I would like to go ahead and turn it over to Prasad to share his insights on the latest factors affecting the freight market today.
Thank you, Marianne. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining our webinar. Today we have two amazing guests. They're veterans of transportation and have a lot of insights that they would share with us as well. Okay, so let me introduce our guest first. Zack Maddox. Zack is an industry veteran with over 18 years of experience in transportation and logistics. He has been with FedEx for numerous years as managing director for Custom Critical. Before joining FedEx, Zack was with Conway and Freight Court and Roadhog. Zack, would you share a little bit about your organization?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Prasad, and thanks for inviting me and giving me the opportunity to speak. And thank you to all the listeners. FedEx Custom Critical, we're a leading North American expedited freight carrier. Traditionally, it's a freight carrier that was bought by FedEx. It used to be called Roberts Express many, many years ago. Within FedEx Custom Critical, traditionally it's the expedited freight, but recently added to the portfolio is the Transportation Management Division, which I'm a managing director for. Transportation Management consists of two different lines of service. One managed transportation, and the other brokerage solutions. My division specifically is called Freight Solutions. So within Freight Solutions, we handle your typical modes of transportation: dry van, refrigerated, flatbed, LTL, partial, specialized. But we really like to focus on the capabilities that we have and the services that we're able to provide our customers. Traditionally your ad hoc shipments and contractual shipments, but we're also very keen on providing capacity solutions for large project-based work, surge capacity support for end of month and of quarter type moves, and of course, you dedicated capacity. Really just trying to bring a holistic solution for our customers. And we work with a network of over 16,000 carriers across U.S.
Thank you, Zack. And our next guest is Michelle Potter. She's the Senior Director of Strategic Development at England Logistics. She, again, like Zack, has been in this industry for many, many years. She is also part of many advisory boards and think tanks. So definitely a thought leader in this space. Michelle, would you share a little bit about your organization?
Sure. Thanks, Prasad. Thanks, everybody, for participating. Yes, it's been many, many years. Kind of crazy to say it's been 22 years since I've been in the industry. Been with England Logistics now for the past 9 years, and was with Conway for the time prior to that. England Logistics, our parent company, as many will know, is CR England. So as an organization, we've been around for a really long time, since the 1920s. England Logistics is involved in a lot of different non-asset-based transportation services. We pretty much dabble in all of the modes. We're in truckload, we're in LTL, both dry and temperature controlled. We do intermodal, parcel. We have a supply chain company, a very large authorized agent network that sells into full truckload, LTL, and parcel. We're also in the carrier services business, where we offer fuel, tire, and maintenance discounts and a factoring service business as well. We're headquartered in Salt Lake City. We do have 5 locations outside of Salt Lake City that we operate in as well, and continue to look to evolve into additional spaces. We've been a top 20 freight brokerage firm for the past 14 years. We've been ranked the top 50 best companies to sell for the last 2 years. Which we're very proud of, and even more so, we're very proud that this year we were ranked in the Training Magazine's top 125. So very, very excited about that recognition and what it means in terms of our relationships and efforts with our employee group.
Thank you, Michelle, and congrats once again on all the amazing awards that you have achieved there. With your organization. So both FedEx and England Logistics are some of our customers, valuable customers of our Smart Capacity platform. So to get started with the webinar, as a backdrop, let's look at the current state of industry. When we look at the last 12 months or so, we have seen a tighter capacity. There's a heavy driver shortage that everybody is talking about. Economy is growing at an amazing pace, so there is a lot of freight that needs to be moved, and hence there is a higher rates. In some of the highest rates that we have seen are the rates that we haven't seen in over a decade or so. And yet we still have a lot of challenges with inefficiencies in the industry, whether it's still having a lot of trucks running empty or still having inefficiencies in identifying the best assets for best freight. So while all this is happening and forcing the broker space, we also have Uber-like models come into the space. Some of them have seen success with what they're trying to do, but all of this is happening. So let me take a second here and ask our guests to see what other things that they think are some of the factors that are driving in this industry. Michelle, I'll start with you. What are your thoughts on the current state of the industry? Do you see any other factors driving this market now?
Yes, I think you kind of hit on the highlights. From a market perspective, we certainly are seeing a very strong freight market. It's a fun time to be in the industry, and that's not always the case, but it certainly has been a fun time based on all of the demand. More recently, we're starting to feel a little bit of a reprieve on capacity constraints compared to the persistent pressure that we saw throughout the summer. So that's more of a recent experience that we've had. From a technology perspective on the industry, I would say it's unprecedented as it relates to the speed and pressure to adopt technology. These are the circles that I run in, so I may be more immersed in some of those conversations than some people are, but I've just never experienced a time like we're experiencing now as it relates to demands on adopting technology and getting creative. I think it's a kind of an intimidating time, not knowing what some of those lingering disruptors may be as consumer expectations continue to evolve. I think consumers are demanding a lot more on their providers than they have in the past, and trying to anticipate those things, have those conversations, and prepare for them is certainly very challenging. There's more demands on APIs, more expectations for transparency in the movement of freight, and then just the overall ease of doing business. So while we have all of these demands, I still think that there's a lot of challenges overcoming some technology adoption as it relates to the smaller fleets that we tend to work with, right? So our sweet spot is going to be some of those smaller fleets of 20 trucks or less. And with freight being so plentiful for them, they're jumping on board and adopting the new technology isn't as big of a demand for them. So that continues to be a challenge in the industry, and it's just compounded by the pace in which we all need to be moving.
Thank you, Michelle. Zach, do you have any other thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, between you and Michelle, you pretty much touched on all of it. I'll just kind of double down a little bit here. If you look in the past year, this year, 2018, industry experienced type of growth we haven't seen in a long time. You had a lot of brokers reporting, double-digit gains on top-line revenues, profitability, and the year, kind of just jumped off right out of the gate in January with unprecedented volumes coming off a solid peak, and then you had the residual effects of the two major hurricanes last fall. We saw sharp pricing increases due to much higher relative demand in the summer months. When I mean relative demand, just simply talking about the freight available at any given point in time relative to the capacity available to haul it. We're now seeing that relative demand come down a little bit along with pricing, what looks like some level of stabilization in the market. But with growing popularity of e-commerce and consumer spending still showing positive trend, we anticipate a pretty busy peak that we're going into now. I think both the package networks and the LTL networks will be flooded with volume. So it'll be interesting to see, what kind of spills over to the brokerage environment and see what our peak season looks like. All that to say, really in the short term, I would agree that the outlook looks really good for brokerages, 3PLs. I think growth will continue to be fueled by tight capacity. Shippers also continue to rely more heavily on 3PLs for their transportation needs. And we'll just kind of see, I guess the question looming out there is, will the economy, continue to sustain this particular growth? And if so, at what rate? To talk a little bit about the technology side, I feel that just like Michelle said, that the technology is a game changer. The race to digitalization of the brokerage industry is interesting to watch. And quite frankly, the problem is if you watch very long, without getting involved, and you'll be left behind. So that said, it's interesting to me because our industry has been fragmented for decades, thousands of brokers, low barrier to entry, every day having very small pieces of the pie, every company having very small pieces of pie as far as market share is concerned. And each brokerage being more or less in the ballpark of the same rates, utilizing the same capacity, offering similar services. We used to say that brokers have to differentiate themselves from the competition based on the relationships they're able to form with both shippers and carriers, and making sure that they deliver a superior service. And those things are still true, but with the emergence of technology, especially at the fingertips of individuals at the consumer level, those expectations now are becoming table stakes at the commercial level, and our industry is no exception. So you have brokerages and tech companies trying to deliver the best platform and experience to help shippers find capacity. And, what I think is interesting is that you take that brick and mortar fragmentation and starting to see it a little bit on the digital side. So everybody's racing to provide this digital platform and digital experience for shippers and carriers. And so it'll be interesting to see how companies differentiate themselves and become that platform of choice.
Thank you, Zach. So now moving further down, when we look at the 3PL space, the core of our discussions fall into what is the current state of covering freight, because everything boils down to covering freight. When we talk to customers, predominantly one of the issues that come again and again is the one load wonders. So what we mean by one load wonders is when a carrier picks up your load and delivers your load, falls off of your system. So all the effort made into qualifying a particular carrier, your organization is getting one load out of that carrier. So these are one load wonders, and typically we see about 80 to 90% of the carriers falling into this category for any 3PL. And in one sense, this is probably one of the highest drivers of cost for covering freight. The other two drivers that drive the cost of covering freight or inefficiencies in the process are primarily too many calls to cover a load. Typically, people are making about 30 to 40 calls to cover a particular load, and part of that is the underlying cause for that we have seen is that not having accurate information on hand makes all these calls. It's almost, in some sense, a broker dispatcher is typically stuck behind the 8 ball in trying to find the right carrier. Now, then the third and more prominent thing is there are too many sources, whether it's phone calls made by the operators from the brokerage every morning, calling these carriers, trying to find out where these trucks are available, or receiving hundreds of emails from these carriers, or going to load boards. Pretty much all these sources are inefficient in their own way, and together they're adding more inefficiencies because of not having accurate, easy to use data that can just cut through the information and get to the right information faster. Again, let's bring in our guests here to see how these factors are affecting their organizations or have affected over a period of time. I'll start with Zach. Zach, would you share a few thoughts on how your team has faced these issues?
Yeah, well, you said it all right there, Prasad. Just talking about the issues that we have, and as we try to transition to a more technology-enabled organization, those are the very reasons, why we need to make the transition. I think the problems that we face as an organization are probably pretty common with others like us in today's environment. One, it's keeping our fingers on the pulse of the market to ensure that we're forecasting our purchase transportation rates properly. It's finding the right capacity at the right time without having to reinvent the wheel on every transaction. And what I mean by that is, just as you explained, every time that we have to utilize a new carrier because we had a new load, that maybe we hadn't worked before, or maybe the timing just wasn't right. We have to find another carrier to do our load. We have to onboard that carrier all over again. Train that carrier, document all of their profile information, so on and so forth. And so it's a time consumer, and quite frankly, a money waster. So if we can improve our carrier utilization, that will help us, drive down our cost. Just think about, having to pound the phones to find that one truck for a load. It takes a lot of time. If we have visibility to where our carriers that are already signed up with us, where they are at any given point in time. Imagine us being able to cover that load a lot faster, in turn increasing the amount of loads that all of our dispatchers can do in a day. And we do that, you know, do more with less, and then obviously you're controlling the cost and you're improving that productivity. So improving that carrier utilization is critical. And of course, it'll help us have a better experience with our carriers by establishing that relationship with them, by working with them every day.
Thank you, Zach. Michelle, do you have any comments to add on that?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of what to add that isn't redundant. You and I speak a lot, so a lot of things that you said are things that I would reiterate, and Zach called on them as well. You know, when it comes to carrier utilization and all of these one load wonders that you referenced, the cost associated to onboarding that group, and then, you know, trying to take advantage of other technology solutions like tracking and having to train somebody new every time on what your tracking solution is, and losing the ROI on that solution because you're now spending all of your time training on it. Having to flush out fraud potential with each new carrier that you're now onboarding rather than working with somebody that you already trust is just incredibly inefficient. Using these load boards and creating all of these both inbound and outbound calls, and the amount of time that's being spent through that process is very draining. And we have employees who crave technology, and I think that's going to continue to be the case. Being a capacity manager or dispatcher or whatever you call that role, it's a tough job and it's a draining job. And the folks that we hire grew up with technology and they want technology. So it's also getting in their hands something that really makes their job more rewarding and more enticing. So covering freight is challenging in and of itself, but then, you know, trying to keep people motivated in that type of a role is very difficult.
Thank you, Michelle, for sharing those insights. Now, so for the past few minutes, we all have shared or discussed thoughts on what are various challenges and opportunities that are faced by 3PLs and brokers in this industry. And certainly some might get overwhelmed with all the challenges that are in front and probably get distracted by the day-to-day things and miss out on the opportunities. So what we suggest or recommend is a new thought, a new mindset that formulates a better strategy for 3PLs or brokers, where, you know, building an organization not just for today's market, but for a sustained growth into the future. So the thought we're sharing with everyone is, everyone who's a broker or a 3PL is, think like an asset-based company. So what we mean by think like an asset-based company is putting the truck before the load. So for example, as a 3PL or a broker, you would start a day with looking at, you have to cover X number of loads on that day, to changing the mindset to focus on having to cover X number of trucks that are from the carriers that are part of your network in a given day. So you're looking at, here are the trucks from my carrier network. Where are the loads for these? So it's almost thinking like an asset-based company. So the advantages with this thought are, you are basically assuming the responsibility, hypothetically, in making or maximizing the asset utilization of the trucks of the carriers that belong to your network. When you put the focus of the carrier ahead of your own self. The carriers are going to benefit from this approach. And when they see the success with you, most of these carriers have that loyalty towards coming back to you. Obviously, there are other intangibles that you would need to build into this process. So it's not just filling up their trucks, but having that sustained relationship. So using a technology or a platform that can help you as a 3PL build those relationships with the carriers and start looking at a carrier as your own truck, and trying to assume the responsibility of making sure the truck's always covered. Our smart capacity platform is built primarily for that purpose. What we call it, our platform is a carrier capacity management platform. So what it does is it basically looks at the real-time information of where the capacity is available, sometimes days in advance, even before the capacity is available. So it can bring that to you, to bring that mindset of putting the truck before the load. It also uses primarily all the real-time information rather than stale information, so there are no inefficiencies in your process. But more than that, adding all the various touch points that you will have with the carrier, whether it's with the visibility of freight, or whether it's document scanning, or if you provide any fuel discounts, or quick pay, or any other benefits to the carriers. These are extremely sticky points that build and nourish your relationship with the carriers. And so all this happening on a private and confidential platform. Now, both our guests are our customers. So let me pause for 1 second and ask them the questions of. So Zack, I'll start with you. How do you see a platform like this benefiting your organization? Zack, it looks like you're on mute. Let me ask Michelle the question. Looks like maybe Zack we missed him on that. Michelle?
Yeah, so how would this platform benefit us? Yeah. It really comes back to all of the challenges associated with carrier utilization. You talk about thinking more like an asset-based company, and really what we associate that to is those carrier utilization numbers. You know, how many loads per carrier are you handling? And by being able to provide a solution that is very driver and carrier centric, that really offers them some advantages, in turn provides us with huge efficiencies as well, because we are utilizing those repeat carriers. We don't have to worry about whether or not we can trust them, whether or not there could be an issue with fraud, whether or not we have to chase down contracts, we have to chase down insurance, and all the challenges that are associated to that. And I suppose it's fair that, with this being your presentation, it's fair to do a plug on behalf of Trucker Tools, where one of the huge differentiators that I see with working with this company is just how driver and carrier centric they are. It's one thing to have tools that we like as brokers and we want to utilize, but if the carriers and drivers don't want to come to it, then you're just not going to get that adoption. And they've been very good at trying to create solutions that incentivize and benefit these carriers and drivers so that they want to use it because it's making their lives easier and making them more efficient. And in turn, they're not having to work with hundreds of different brokers, but they know what they can expect when they work with us. They know how quickly they're going to get compensated. They know how we respond when issues do go amok, which is going to happen in transportation. They know how claims will get handled. So it's really just a game changer in trying to really create a platform where you can have an in-network that you're working with of carriers and continually working to enhance those relationships and maintain that group without constantly expanding it.
Thank you very much, Michelle. Thank you for all the kind words. Zack, are you back online?
I'm back. Sorry about that. I don't know what happened.
That's okay. Do you have any thoughts you'd like to add?
Yeah, I caught the tail end of what Michelle said, and I agree wholeheartedly. I would just simply say that, you know, the technology is truly the opportunity. The key is attracting the capacity. You know, that old movie that said, you know, if you build it, they'll come. I think the tech company or the 3PL that figures out, you know, how to be that place of choice where carriers find added value to transact in your space, that's where the game will be changed and be that true disruptor. And I think smart capacity is definitely going down that road. So
thank you very much for sharing your thoughts. And definitely, you know, as our guests have shared their views on or the goals for their organizations with our platform, we at Trucker Tools have always focused on our customers' goals. How do we align our platform to better stay in lockstep mode with our customers in their journey as they adopt and enhance their own strategies? So our goals with our smart capacity platform are very simple. How do we keep those one load wonders or convert them into repeat business by building and strengthening that relationship that you have with the carriers? And not only that, but aggregating all sources of your capacity into one platform where the inefficiencies and inaccurate information is all filtered out, so your team is not wasting any time. Typically, you know, the goal with that is how do we automate non-value added tasks, and so that your team can focus on really the value add services that you provide to your customers. And all this is on a private and a confidential network. So it all started with, you know, as our guests mentioned in their comments, it all started with Trucker Tools app at the core of our platform. This is an app built for carriers, primarily owner-operators and small carrier drivers. We have over 500,000 of these truckers that use our app, whether they need cheapest fuel along their route, service centers, or a truck wash locator or a weigh scale, whatever they need, their need be. This is an all-in-one app for the drivers. And having this app in the center and gain the truckers' trust was the core for this platform to be able to deliver that the relationship network that you are looking for as a whole. The users on our app are very active. As you can see, they're coast to coast active on this, whether they are looking for a particular point of interest or freight. This is their go-to app. Smart capacity by numbers quickly. Since we launched late last year, we were the first to get to this space. And even before we launched our product, we had a lot of input from our key customers, such as the ones that you're talking to today, in the goals for the platform. And since we launched, we have over 100,000 carriers and over 500,000 truckers on path. Now, as I mentioned earlier, this is not a platform where it's one and done. It is a constantly evolving platform that better fits your needs. So as part of that, our philosophy has always been, let's innovate more. What else can we do to push the envelope? And in the recent times, there are a few things that we have added. So just going to share the latest updates or enhancements in this path. One is capacity emails. So when your teams receive hundreds of these emails every day, we have built a natural language processing engine that can quickly read these emails, not only just read those, but quickly identify whether whether those trucks are still available or not, and eliminate the ones that are not available, respond back to the carrier with the potential loads from you, because it can clearly see what loads match the carrier's preferences, and all that in a fraction of time. It's literally a few seconds from the time the system receives the email to the time it actually responds back to the carrier. Of course, it alerts your team members so that they know exactly what's happening. So that's just one of the latest features. The other couple of features that we have added are lane tendering or carrier tendering or carrier offering. So when the carriers look at your freight, they can respond back with rates, which gets filtered back to you. Similarly, you could push rates back, responses back to these carriers with a different offering. Again, all of this is integrated with your TMS or into your business process. We also have something called lane searches. So to go a little deep into the product here, we're not just looking at what is available at a current state. Our system has the artificial intelligence to quickly look at a particular carrier and see what lanes they typically run, and under different seasonal curves, what lanes they run. So our system has that ability to look at a particular carrier and say, during the months of spring, this carrier typically runs in between Florida and Atlanta, and in the winter months, it actually runs between New York and Chicago. So having that ability to differentiate these things further helps to find that the carrier, the right match, faster than slower. So these are some of the things that that are in the works. So let me take the conversation to our guests one more time to see, if they see any other thoughts on some of the directions that we are taking here. So I'll start with Michelle. Michelle, do you have any thoughts or comments on this?
So for the group, we have been on Smart Capacity now for several weeks, for about a month, and have been working with Prasad and his team for many months, as we helped contribute to the product and got ourselves in a position where we could really commit time and investment to helping the tool succeed. And so the tool that we have initially really been focusing on is, just that freight matching piece, trying to find the best carrier to call on our open loads. And there's been requests for some additional data capture in order to understand when we succeed and when we have challenges. And when it comes to enhancements and things that are new and what this group brings to the table, it happens very quickly. It's a very nimble group, and we haven't really gotten into the stage yet where we're doing the automated carrier offers and tendering and going out and seeing, okay, where do we have carriers available? Now let me go look and see where we can sell into those markets. those are the things that we're really excited to do and think can be major game changers. At this point, again, we're looking at what capacity is available for the freight that we're looking to cover, and trying to make those conversions and working through that new opportunity that we have. So hopefully, Prasad, that answers your question. I'm not sure if you're looking for something else there.
No. That's perfect. Thank you very much for sharing your experience on that. And Zach, with your team being very, very new, recently onboarded with us, do you have any thoughts or comments you want to add to what Michelle has?
Yeah, sure. I mean, as you said, we're just now getting to implementation, but at a high level, our objectives are always that we want to reduce our purchase transportation. We want to improve our carrier utilization. We want to reduce our operating expenses by driving productivity and efficiency in our processes. And as we've had discussions, Prasad, over the course of the last several months, we truly feel that this will help us get to those objectives. So excited to get rolling and get our implementation done so we can see the fruits of it.
Thank you, Zach. And in addition to having some of the great customers here with us today, our product has been in the market and has been, I know we typically use the word battle tested. So it's been used by some of the key or large 3PLs in this space. So it's not a concept. It is a real platform, has been in works with real results. So with that, let me hand the mic back to Marianne.
Fantastic, and thank you all so much for sharing your perspectives. At this point, I'd like to take time for some questions from the audience. So if you haven't already submitted your questions through the Q&A button in your control panel, please be sure to do that. Looks like we do have a few questions so far. So first, Prasad, when it comes to approval from carriers, how often do you find that they're willing to work through the platform, or do you have any issues kind of getting them to adopt it?
No, not really. We don't have any major issues with the carriers. The segment that we are operating is primarily owner-operators and small carriers. 10 trucks or less is our sweet spot. In that segment, the approach that we have taken is we did not go to carriers directly. We actually went to the drivers first. So our app has been downloaded by the drivers. Then we tied the carriers that they work for. So having that starting point with the drivers buy-in has been really an amazing starting point, if any.
Okay. Great. And then can you talk a little bit about how you work to measure capacity?
Measure? I'm thinking, I'm not 100% sure if the person who asked this question wants to know, how many trucks do we have? Is that how we are looking at? Typically, the way we measure is, we look at available trucks at any given point. Obviously, these trucks are not just available for today; they're available for the next week or so. But in our system, we typically look at any given point how many trucks are.
Okay. Great. And then another question. Are people able to see trucks using the app that are not yet onboarded with their companies?
So I'm not I'm not totally sure. Would you please repeat the question one more time?
Yeah, so I can read verbatim. It says, can I see trucks using the app that are not yet onboarded with my company?
Okay. So this is typically what that is. So as a broker, when you come on board, you're looking at your own network of carriers. But the question is, can I see trucks that are not qualified in my network? Mm-hmm. So we call them as out of network. So this is a private and confidential network. So our idea is we want to encourage you to stay with your own qualified carriers. However, we do understand there's always carriers that you would like to add. Carriers would also want to work with more brokers. So our platform, while our focus is to keep your carrier network healthy, we also allow, if a carrier wants to make themselves visible to you, they can make themselves visible to you. And if you like them, you can qualify, and then only they can see your data.
Okay, great. And another question, hazmat service is difficult to source. Have your existing customers provided this type of service?
I don't exactly know if our existing customers have provided hazmat or not, but I know most of our customers are large and they handle a variety of freight, and I would be really surprised if they don't handle hazmat freight.
Okay. All right, and one more. We are currently busy with the peak season freight. How long will it take to onboard smart capacity?
So the first part is very true, right? I mean, we are in the fourth quarter, or approaching fourth quarter, the holiday season. So onboarding smart capacity is very light. So we do it in phases. We spread it out. Our team adapts to your working needs. Pretty much anything that our team could do to not take any time from your side, they'll handle most of those. So they like to make it in such a way that it is a seamless, non-intrusive process as much as possible.
Okay. And one more. Our team already uses a few systems to find freight. Do they have to go to your smart capacity dashboard to use it?
Not necessarily. Typically, our customers would want to either use our dashboard, or they would see the capacity back in their TMS, given the TMS ability to absorb that information.
Okay. Let's see. And Greg asks, is there an API connection to our internal TMS? And does that help with automated tracking updates? And would it replace a macro point?
The quick and simple answer is yes to all of that. Yes, yes, yes.
Okay, great. And are the carriers all ELD compliant within your database?
I would assume so. We are not going after to check if a particular carrier is ELD compliant or not. But at this point, with the mandate being very high, enforced completely, I would assume most of those carriers are. If a particular carrier is not an ELD compliant carrier, say for example, okay, we're not a public load board. We're not coming to you with, here are our 100,000 carriers for you to use it. So that's a very wrong notion. When people come to us, we try to say this as many times as possible. We're not a public load board. We're not pushing your carrier, other carriers to you. Those are the two things we do not do. We're helping you grow your network on our platform. So obviously, if a carrier is part of your network, they already hit certain qualifications that you require, such as, say, for example, having driven these many years or ELD compliant and all those. So you have that, the initial threshold that you are holding. Most of our customers are very careful when they pick a carrier. So when we look at our 100,000 carriers, these are not just any 100,000 carriers. They're very well qualified carriers, if any.
Okay, great. And because every new carrier is approved by the brokerage, how long does it take to become visible within the network?
So the 100,000 carriers that we already have, so anybody who is on our platform, they'll become visible immediately. However, they also have to be available. So not just because a carrier is on our platform doesn't mean that they're available. So two conditions. One, you as a broker, you have a carrier qualified in your network, and that carrier is on our platform. Doesn't mean that that carrier is going to show up to you because they may not be available. Right? However, if they are your carrier, your qualified carrier, you could still search on some of the lanes that they have done to see if those are specific lanes that you want to work with.
Okay. Great. And then how do you handle the tracking of trucks? And do you ever find that to be an issue?
So we currently use the GPS on the driver's smartphone to track the trucks from not just from pickup to delivery, but also beyond that if the carrier wants to push their capacity or when the carrier is available for a particular load.
Okay.
And that has never become a problem for us, especially GPS is far more reliable than any other technologies that are out there. Just imagine, you can see the satellites easily when you're going on an open road than cell phone towers. So that side, it has been very, very reliable. Now with some of the regulations that have come in the recent times from AT&T, Verizon, and others, I know there is some confusion and gray area whether those services will continue or not. GPS-based tracking has no effect on those by those things. So our tracking is consistent.
Okay. Great. And then does your app track through only the Sell app, or is it also tied into ELDs as well?
So first of all, the first part of the question, we do not use the cell phone triangulation. We use the GPS on the driver's smartphone. So that's where the accuracy comes in. It is not tied into the ELDs. However, if you have a carrier that wants to share their location through ELDs, our platform provides that channel as well. So you don't have to directly work with them. That's already integrated.
Okay. And obviously there are multiple company sizes throughout the industry. Would you recommend this for a startup?
I'm assuming a startup as in a startup broker.
Right.
The answer is yes, it is. Think of it as we are not a solution for one customer versus other customer. This is a platform where the value of this platform is derived by how much you are committed to really building those relationships with your carriers. So we don't actually enforce you to have fuel discounts with the carriers. But if you do, we have the flexibility, we have the technology readily available to connect with your carriers, because we see your carriers on our platform. We're just basically showing your discounts, right? So we're not asking you to provide a quick pay or discounts on a tires broker, or use the same platform to make sure that you are putting a truck before the load, right? use that approach of finding your network first before you go outside. All that is coming from you. So think of it in one way. This is a fitness program. This is a fitness program that for everyone. Doesn't matter whether they're a startup, an established company, or a medium-sized broker. It's up to you how much you want to commit yourself to using this platform. That's where we ask you. The more you commit to using the platform, the better results you'll see, your team will see.
Okay, great. And how do you help to maximize a carrier's trucks or asset utilization?
So so a lot of times when people say we match trucks, so they just look at the availability of trucks. But we take that to the next level, where our system can actually see where, let's say you have two loads for a particular truck, one going to Chicago, the other one going to Dallas. But based on the carrier's network, whether going to Dallas or Chicago, one of them has a better chance of getting reloaded. The word that we use with the carriers is better reload. So our focus is always better reload for the carrier. Hence, we want the carrier to be always loaded and always on the road. And more importantly, always moving your load, and hence that carrier stays with you. That's the way we look at this.
Okay, great. And what would you say sets smart capacity apart from other solutions?
I think it is. There are a few things that our customers have said today. Our guest speakers, with their experience in this industry and their experience with us. I think those are some of the most valuable points that we could ever hear from our customers. We are very much thankful for that. It is a all-in-one platform. The goal of this platform is how do we help our customers, you, 3PLs and brokers, to have a sustained growth. We want you to transform your business, and we want to be part of that. We don't look at ourselves as vendors. We look at ourselves as partners in your journey. And so always we are asking ourselves, what else can we do to help you and your team achieve that goal? So that's our biggest differentiation as a culture, right? From a product point of view, we started off with the mobile app, where we didn't take other routes. Having the driver, the owner-operator of the small carrier on the platform has been tremendously valuable for our platform. And having some of the largest 3PLs who are driving this industry with new strategies and new transformations as our customers help us build this platform or set the direction for this platform. So that combination sets us apart from our competition.
Okay, and we have time for maybe just a couple more quick questions. Can there be multiple users per account?
Yes.
Great. And then finally, do you offer a live demo?
Yes, we do.
Okay, great. And if you did ask that question, we will obviously be in touch with you after. So if you're interested, please feel free to reach out to us. But that is really all of the time that we have for today. So thank you again to everyone for taking the time to listen in. And thank you again to Prasad, Zack, and Michelle for sharing your insights with us today. And finally, if you haven't already purchased your tickets, don't forget to join us for MarketWaves 18, which will be in Grapevine, Texas on November 12th and 13th. MarketWaves is the premier event for the freight industry and will include an incredible lineup of speakers, live product demos, plenty of networking opportunities, and a whole lot more. So to learn more about the event or to register, visit www.freightwaves.com/MarketWaves18. And thank you all again for joining us today. We hope you will come back for another webinar again soon.
Thank you.